Hello, this is JG1GPY Takeshi. Thank you very much for watching the channel. Today, I'd like to introduce a new antenna, so-called Versatile Mobile Spool Antenna, or VMS Antenna for short. This antenna consists of a fishing spinning reel along with a matching box altogether. And stainless wire is spooled into this fishing reel so that you can adjust the length of element arbitrarily whatever you want. Let me introduce a little bit more in detail. The original idea of this antenna was made by JP1QEC Moto, and I found it very interesting and I tried to improve it by myself. I often go mountains with the ham radio stuff and making QSO in HF bands. Not only domestic stations, but some stations from the west coast of the United States and Australia, New Zealand. It's a fun. When I go mountains, I often QRV on 7, 14, 21, and 28 MHz band. In 7 MHz band, I'm getting a lot of call from domestic stations. And higher band, if I'm lucky, I can get a contact from international stations. Here is a challenge. I'd like to operate in multiple bands, but I have to take everything with me to the summit, including antennas. So multiple band antenna is good, but I don't want to compromise performance. How can we do that? But with this antenna, instead of having a matching component in the bottom of the antenna, we have spooled stainless wire in the fishing wheel so that you can adjust the length of the antenna arbitrarily like this, pulling out, then making contact using this alligator clip here. It is important to note that you need to have stainless wire because the wire has to be naked so that you can make contact at this point. You cannot use a copper wire covered with a plastic layer for this reason, even though the copper is much better in terms of resistance of the material. Since stainless wire has a higher resistance, you have to have some special consideration when using this antenna. Okay, let's take a look how this antenna works in each band. In 7 MHz band, I use a vertical antenna configuration, which means that I pull out the stainless wire about 10 meters, which means quarter wavelength of the band, and add additional radio element on the ground using copper wire. Even though the resistance of the stainless wire, this antenna works very well and I often get piled up in the band. In higher band, such as 14, 21, 28 MHz band, you can use end-fed half-wave configuration. In this band, you don't have to use any counterpoise. Just extend your stainless wire to a designated length so that you can operate without any hassle. In these bands, you have to use a simple 1 to 49 balance to match with 50 ohm cable. One thing I noticed was that even though the spooled stainless wire is outside of antenna element, and at first I thought that it's nothing to do with antenna operation, but it was not true, and it's still working as kind of inductor so that your element length at this configuration is smaller than its full length value. For instance, at 21 MHz band, the length of the element tuned at this band is 70% shorter than its full size value. And this tendency is getting more prominent as you go up the frequency, as you have more wires spooled in the fishing reel. Those end-fed antennas are working fine. SWR is very low and are working nicely, but I feel the performance is not as good as it should. I think it is because the wire resistance of the stainless wire. Once I tried to use a copper element instead of stainless wire at the main body of the element, and I was getting a better result. But still I can get a benefit by adjusting element length by the spooled stainless wire. One thing I want to point out is that because you can arbitrarily change the length of element at field, you can try a variety of antenna configurations and you can feel how antenna works in the field. I think it's worth try it. In higher band, I'm trying to use this antenna for delta loop configuration rather than end-fed half-wave configuration to get better performance. I will report it in a different video. Thank you very much for watching. This is JG1GPY 73.